Francisco d'Ancona.
Watching, we know you.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Face to Face with me, Azad Ali. This week we are continuing the discussion about masajid. In particular, we're going to look at young British Imams today. And I'm happy to say, joining me in the studio is Imam Ashraf Dabous from Lewisham Islamic Centre. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Jazakumullah khair for joining us, Imam. And I'm sure you've had some feedback from the last week's series. What we were discussing is like what role mosques play in our community. And one of the things that came out in the discussions was that, you know, the masajid should be the heartbeat of the community. It should be one where not just Muslims but everyone has a place, but it is there for the welfare of everything. Now, one of the challenges that we kind of discussed was actually the people that are at the kind of helm of a masajid are usually older, usually are not speaking the language of the most of the congregation, and we kind of agreed on the show that, you know, actually it's important to have British born Imams. Alhamdulillah, you're one of those.
Yeah,
so just a little bit about yourself. So in terms of, like, you know, getting to, you know, Alhamdulillah, you studied at Medina University, you're also doing your masters and everything else here. I mean, in terms of studies and everything else, what kind of challenges did you face?
The challenges of study, I think, for myself may differ from others because I didn't really come from a traditionally Islamically inclined academic background. Right. My family, my father, Muslim, alhamdulillah, and he taught us a lot, but it wasn't a lot of students you find that they come from an Islamically inclined academic background. Right. They've been studying the traditions of Islam for a while before they go abroad. So for myself, those challenges kind of I had to overcome before overcoming some of the other challenges. So one of them, which is relevant to the topic really, is the challenge of culture, and is being immersed in another environment. I mean, because of my Egyptian background, that didn't really play too much of an issue. But the issue, I've started to realize it now, is you know, going into a culture and then coming out of that culture without losing some of your own identity and culture yourself. So I think that is a challenge that I'm still trying to face. And then you have, of course, challenges of being by yourself. You know, you're leaving off everything that you knew, everything that you know. You have challenges of direction. It's very easy to go and study, but what are you going to do with that?
Well, what was your aspirations? I mean, did you like set off saying, you know what, I want to learn the deen? And I mean, obviously that's something that all Muslims should do to a certain extent, but obviously you wanted to pursue it to a higher level. Was your idea that, you know, one day you want to become an Imam or something like that? Is that what you were thinking?
To be honest, no. I was not considering being an Imam at all. It didn't cross my mind. I went abroad mainly because I wanted to learn the Arabic language first, and to get in a deeper understanding of my deen, of my tradition, which also was my identity at that time. So that was one of the challenges that I faced as a young person, my identity. And so Islam provided me that identity, and so I wanted to become further entrenched in that identity. And so I went to a local Imam in West London, and I said to him, I want to learn about my deen. It was time for choosing university, and he said, go to Medina. So I was, of course, I said to him, no, I'm not going to leave London. I'm from London. I want to be in London. And he convinced me. So a year later, I was flying off. So it wasn't anything like I had this idea that I want to be an Imam. I want to. It's kind of along the way. I ended up.
How long did you study? Is it like?
I was there for 10 years.
10 years.
And usually the academic study period is 6. So I prolonged my stay slightly. I mean, whether that can be seen as a good or bad thing.
No. Well, if you're in Medina, it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
I think. So you come back. How did you get into this role then? Did someone suggest it to you or something like that?
Whilst I was there, I mean, later on towards my studies, I did start to think about these things, direction, what do I want to do, and of course, when you learn about the deen, you learn that the deen has solutions for every problem, and you learn that this is a mercy for mankind. This is something that society needs. So then I started to question, how can I use this? You know, what can I do to be a part of the solution for the problems that I see in the world, in society? And I met Imam Shakil, and we met a few times, and we discussed and he suggested coming to Lewisham, and that's basically how I ended up there.
And how long have you been there?
A year and a half.
Year and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
So, alhamdulillah, you've come to like a point in your journey where you're using your education for the betterment of not just Muslims but also of society. So you've gone into an institution. How do you, I mean, we're not talking about Lewisham Mosque in particular, but how do you find, because obviously before you weren't working in an organization or an institution in that way, how do you find, what are the kind of positives, and what do you think are areas that we need to look at improving on perhaps?
I think the positives, one of the main positives I would say of working in an institution, a masjid, is number one, you're in touch with the society around you. And I think this is a major challenge for many people that go abroad and study. It's very easy to lose touch. You know, you end up falling into an academic bubble. Right. So you're busying yourself with issues that are irrelevant to the context, to the time, to the people around you. So being an institution, I think, especially a masjid, being in touch with the people, you know, interacting with the people, seeing the people's problems. That
I mean, if I can interrupt you, Imam Ashraf, that point you made is actually a very good and valid point about, you know, being in an academic bubble or a knowledge kind of bubble. But some would say also, you know, people who work in the masjid, they all work in a bubble as well. That you know, that they don't really reach out.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and I think that is true. So, and I think the issue with bubbles is that there are different sized bubbles, different shaped bubbles. Okay. So for some,
I like how you explain this.
Yeah, so for some, I mean, the bubble of a masjid, you know, you can fall into that bubble, but I think the issue of that is a lack of outreach to the wider society. Right, okay. You know, it's very easy, for example, and that's one of the problems, I would say, a challenge, is that you can easily fall into a comfort zone within the masjid. Okay, let me do a khutbah, let me do a daily lesson. Let me, you know, do a bit of counselling, give some advice, set up a little youth circle, without actually questioning, is this actually having an impact? Is it going to leave a legacy? And that's relates to the other issue of direction. As you mentioned earlier, you know, the direction, and on the previous discussion with Imam Shakil, the issue of Islam being a solution for you know, society, not just for the Muslim society. So if you don't have outreach into the non-Muslim society, into the wider society, then you can fall into that problem.
I mean, I'm going to come back to that in a bit. The kind of things that you're saying is positive. You're working in an institution, you're kind of seeing the context, you're hearing, because you're probably seeing, excuse me, members of the community on a daily basis. So you're hearing what is bothering them. What about some of the challenges? What do you think they are?
The challenges, I believe there are, you could say, two types of challenges. I would say there's two sides: personal challenges and collective challenges. So personal challenges, again, it depends on the individual, but a lot of the personal challenges do relate to the collective, and solutions can be given for the collective. So I could give you an example of some of those. You know, as you can imagine, you're dealing with a lot of people. So, and you're dealing with, you know, problems, happy times, good times, there's a lot. So that can be emotionally taxing. It can be mentally taxing. So you need, for that, support. You know, you need a support network. You also need training. You need,
because it has an effect on you. I mean, you're also going through a traumatic process.
Of course, definitely. And not only that, is that you are a human. And this is something that I think many people forget, that an imam is a human. An imam is not, you know, a
superhuman.
Some sort of super spiritual being, you know, that is always right, always on a high. You know, they have their ups and their downs, and so having that support will get rid of a lot of these problems.
Okay. I mean, the other kind of area of discussion is that we don't really value the role of an imam in the sense that we in terms of salary reimbursement and that kind of stuff, remuneration, we're not actually providing something that is adequate for them to just focus on that. So what we've seen over time is that an imam, as well as being an imam, does also other things to supplement their income. Is this something that you think is being looked at seriously?
Not at all, and in fact I've discussed this with many of my peers, young imams also, and this is a big issue. The issue is that our community, both Muslim and non-Muslim, need a lot of help, and we can provide a lot of solutions, but if we don't have the financial backing in our own personal lives, and also in regards to education and training, then it's a lost cause. So for example, not myself, alhamdulillah, I do get support from Lewisham, but a lot of young imams now, the salaries that they're receiving, it's not sufficient, and so they end up burning out financially, mentally, especially if they have families. As you mentioned, they have to go look for another part-time job. So the input that they can place into the institution is almost halved, and then the community will start to complain. But the issue is, if you want someone that can deliver a high standard, you have to provide them a high standard of support. And also this would also get rid of the issue of imams looking for money from
other places,
projects. And if you look into the fiqh side, traditionally an imam, a judge, they were provided with a stipend to prevent exchange of money, and to make sure that they could dedicate themselves to this
role.
role.
No, it's a very important one, and just it's interesting hearing it from your point of view, a young person point of view, that this is something that people have been discussing for a long time, but it seems like it hasn't really been. There's not been much progress on this. It seems like there is this. It's just an imam's role.
No, and if I could add to it as well, is that if you have a young person who's graduated, say for example they've got a degree, master's degree, they and in a field of engineering or architecture or medicine, they would expect a certain salary, and if they were to ask for it, you wouldn't say, oh, you're not being humble, you're not being. You would say, yeah, you deserve it. But when an imam says, look, I need this amount, nail
on the head.
People say, oh, come on, humble yourself, do this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. I would love to do it for Allah as a person, but the issue is, if you don't have the ability to support your family, you can't do anything.
No, absolutely. This is a really good point and well made as well. We're just going to take a short break, inshallah, and we're going to come back. Do join us after this break. See you in a minute. Just before the break, you were talking about, providing a balance, a reasonable salary, and the example you gave is like, other professions, when they're qualified, there is an expectation that my salary will be at this level. But however, for imams, humble yourself, akhi, and that kind of language is used. And I think it is actually taking advantage, using the religion to take advantage of not actually doing their job. And I think there's a certain amount of injustice there. So that's definitely something that we need to look at. Other than that, in terms of other forms of support, so you've mentioned, okay, we need financial support, we need educational support. So like, you're providing counselling and everything else. That's something you need to also learn. It's not something that's taught in a fiqh class necessarily. So that kind of what else do you think would be useful for you to perform?
I think, as you mentioned, the counselling, that needs proper training. For example, myself, I'm doing counselling training now, and it's completely opens a new view to how to deal with situations, safeguarding issues. You need safeguarding training, public speaking training, writing, outreach, community organisation. There's so many fields that an imam needs to be trained up in, because educational management, because an imam, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show, the heartbeat of society. A masjid can potentially be the heartbeat of society, but an imam is expected to fulfill those roles in some part. He may have a team to help him, but in some part he has to have an understanding of those roles. So and you find, for example, in various professions, they have an educational program that an employee will go on. So after 5 years, they would have gone through multiple courses. And so for an imam, I don't think that it should be...
It's that continuous learning. I mean, you have one element which is Islamically continuously learning, you know, through experience and everything else, and you know, you gain seniority in the knowledge of the deen, but also in terms of helping people dealing with practicality. So one of the discussions that does come up in our community is, well, you know, should an imam be apolitical or political, you know, that kind of stuff. And there seems to be this false notion of, you know, almost like a separation between state and church, which of course isn't the case in our deen. But, you know, we do have those conversations. I mean, what do you think?
I think the saying, as they say, your choice to stay out of politics is politics itself. You can't stay out of politics, especially in a masjid. And if you're going to be a masjid, your direction is to serve the community. You have to have a political stance. You have to have political links. You cannot avoid that. So, for example, if dealing with schools, dealing with the issues of SRE, dealing with the issues of Islamophobia, of racism, dealing with the issues of even, for example, housing, you know, there's so many issues. They're all politics. And I think this is an issue within the Muslim community. We're okay to deal with politics when it's for our interest. You know, like to go to the housing office, is that not politics? To talk to your local MP about problems, is that not politics? So to have political training, I think is very, very important. And also the masajid can play a crucial part in the future of this country if the imams were to be politically you know, aware.
I mean, a lot of people, even when I was growing up, I used to look to the imam for also political direction on you know, so what would our position be on this, because there's you get insight into various things, whether they're economic, social and everything else, from a secular point of view, but there's also an Islamic point of view on all of these things, because obviously we have to have, at the end of the day, principle-based approach, and our primary focus is the akhirah, so we have to protect that. So if the imams aren't, you know, the learned are not the ones that are giving us the political direction, then we are leaving that door open for people to abuse,
definitely. And our heritage as Muslims, we have a long heritage of you know, academia, politics, you know, championing the rights of the weak. So, and to be honest, I mean, I believe personally that is our biggest door into showing the beauty of Islam, by championing the rights of the weak, because we live amongst the weak. You know, we live with them. We live side by side. And this also relates to another issue, which I think is a big challenge for new imams, young imams, which you could say we've kind of inherited, you could say. I don't mean it in a negative term, but it's just that was the way things were. The divisions, you know, and so coming to be able to work in unison with each other and transcend the theological and jurisprudential differences for the betterment of our community vision. This is a big challenge, because, you know, there are a lot of young imams that may not want to speak out against these things out of fear of being, you know, rebuked by their community or their community leaders, their elders. And for some, they don't have the backing to be brave. But it is something which there is a lot of discussion going on about.
I mean, it sounds like amongst the younger imams, do you feel, I mean, obviously the elder generation, that they are where they are, but with the younger imams, do you feel that there is a lot less of that division, you know, from the different schools?
Alhamdulillah, I do believe so. I mean, for example, as myself, I have you know, contact and I would say bi'idhnillah in the future, I would say friendships with imams from various backgrounds, you know, Salafi backgrounds, Deobandi backgrounds, even theologically speaking, you know, Ash'ari, Athari, you know, Maturidi, these things, alhamdulillah, that's slowly starting to disappear. And also on the fatwa front, you know, I think this needs to transcend the differences in fatwa. Not saying that we need to leave off the madhahib. I think we should stick to the madhahib, but when giving fatwa in our context.
I mean, the madhahib and the fiqhi things are, they can always be specific, but it's on a wider, on a higher level, having that almost like a unity, because a lot of the problems like we face, like for example, Islamophobia doesn't really pick, you know, which school of thought is going to attack.
Definitely.
In fact, it doesn't even pick Muslims. You know, it makes, you know, picks on Sikhs and everything else. Okay. Now, just going back to some of the things that you want to, like, you know, mashallah, you're young and everything else that you want to do in the community. What do you see? I mean, obviously from a South London perspective, you're going to speak, but what do you see as the key things that, you know, as a young person, a young Imam, that you want to tackle?
I can't speak for myself. I would say what I would like to see happen, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make myself a part of that. But what I would like to see is that the masajid become centre points for change across not only UK but Europe. That's what I would like to see, that the masajid, you know, they produce individuals that change societies by introducing principles, upright values, and showing, reminding, you know, humanity what we've left off. And I think if we look to history, Islam has always played that role. And if we look into our history, you've had institutions that have played a similar role. You know, they're similar to masajid, but they provided spiritual, you know, healing. They provided political awareness and political guidance. They provided education, how to worship. And so to see our masajid come together collectively and work in unison with each other towards that, this is what I would like to see.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And in particular, is there a line of work that you want to pursue in the community, you know, in this role? Is there something that you want to specialize in that you think?
That's a good question, to be honest. I don't think I can say that I've thought about within the community what line do I specialize in. I mean, now, for example, my role is adult education, counselling to some levels. I haven't gone in too deep because of you need a lot of experience. Khutbahs, leading prayers. So yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to use me in the best way possible. But I think groundwork is the way forward.
I mean, so you want to go out on meet the people on the street in the different places and kind of reach out. That's something what attracts you? It's
again a good question. It's not that it attracts me, but I think the issue with being an Imam is that you can't really select what you want to do. You have to do what is needed, and so to have the ability.
So, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, I'm just going to challenge you a little bit on that. So, see, the way I'm seeing it is, then you're going to become a jack of all trades, and we kind of have already Imams that are jack of all trades. They are trying to do so many different things, and to be honest, for one person, it's not possible.
It's too much,
it's too much. So you know, in your mosque, you might have 2, 3, or 4 Imams. If all of them are jack of all trades, then you know what is the speciality that you're bringing? And I think I'm just thinking, like, is this just me thinking like that, or do you think that there is actually a need? So it might be like, for example, that, you know, what one Imam they specialize in actually outreaching with the non-Muslim community, or that there's someone that is focused on understanding the social, political kind of environment that we're living in, the challenges that are coming from that, and dealing with that as well from a mosque perspective. Otherwise, it's like, you know, everyone picks up a little bit, but no one's actually taking it forward. No,
it's a very, very good question. But the issue there is, in order for you to assess things in such a way, you have to have the facilities and the support to do so. And so many.
But if that was forthcoming, do
then
you think
right now my focus would be adult education. And I would say. See, I don't want to go too deep.
No. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. But yeah, adult education and working towards that collective. So, you know, working with others towards building that collective, and that would be inclusive of Muslims and non-Muslims, because our
so creating that harmony and kind of
I would say more than harmony, but collective, from which we can start to move forward. That would be my main ideal focus. Alongside the adult education.
No, Jazakallah khair. We're coming to to the end. Just a final thing for our audience. Would you kind of encourage more people to, study the deen and actually get actively involved in their mosques?
Of course, I would say that for anyone that would like to make a change in society, the masjid is the best platform, because from the masjid you can provide services and you can cater projects and you can deliver things that you can't necessarily deliver in other areas. And right now we're in need of young, energetic individuals that understand the context and that are willing to be a bit bold and creative and move forward. So I would really encourage, but as you said, the issue with studying is to have direction. Sure. So study with the idea that you're coming back. So always keep things relevant to the context, because it's very easy to study and remain over there even though you're still here. Your mind's there, your context is there, your body's here, and you can cause a lot of problems. So I think I would definitely encourage young people to take this.
Well, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you. We've run out of time. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for joining us. Inshallah, join me again next week when we will carry on with this discussion, but more important discussions as well. Okay, take care. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair.
Watching, we know you.